I'm an electrician by trade, and I work for a large construction company. Last year, my company took on a contract to build a huge retreat in a remote mountain. I wish I could tell you the location, but I can't because I'm bound by contract to keep my mouth shut of the specifics. In any event, I joined the crew about 9 months after the construction began. It took that long because just laying the foundation, they say it was a complex and difficult job. You add framing and roofing on top of that, that's how it took 9 months for the plumbing, electrical, and HVAC work to get started. I was floored the first time I got to witness the construction with my own eyes. It was the first time I was involved in such a grand-scale construction, but that wasn't the only reason why I was so impressed. It was actually the location of the construction that surprised me the most. It was in the middle of nowhere. The location was so remote that they had to build a private road to get all the materials and equipment delivered to the site. As for the size of the building, it was only 3 stories high but tremendously wide. Imagine a mansion about the size of half a football field. That should give you a good idea of its dimensions. I worked at the site for about 5 months and my job there was finished. They called me up a couple of times thereafter to change a few things, but my job there was pretty much done. During the 5 months that I worked there, many of the guys who had been there from the beginning kept telling me that the building was actually a bunker for a super rich businessman. I figured they were just messing with the new guy, and so I didn't take them seriously. But all of that changed about 14 months after I left the site for good. I came to work one day and my manager called me up to tell me that the CEO wanted to have a chat with me. I asked him why the head honcho of the company would want to speak to a lowly electrician, and all I got in return was a shrug. That day, I left our crummy office in downtown and drove to the headquarters of the company for the first time since I took the job. I felt out of place with all the suits around me, but whatever, I was gonna be there for only a day. I got upstairs, waited for the CEO, and some minutes later I was taken into a large, luxurious office by the secretary. The CEO dude was far from the man I expected him to be. He was polite and respectful. He didn't look down on me, nor did he try to boss me around. However, he was charismatic and persuasive. This was the first time I had met someone in such high place. I used to think of them as pompous, rich, know-it-all fools, but I was wrong, and I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong. This guy was just on another level in terms of intelligence, poise, and confidence. It's self-evident why this guy runs the show. At any rate, the CEO laid out a contract and informed me that a confidentiality agreement was part of the deal. He needed me to sign that even before agreeing to the work he was proposing. It was tempting because the money was good. No, the money was great. I was getting paid 5 times what I make in a year for a 6-month job. Now granted, I had to stay on site until the end of the project and we had to work long hours. Food and lodging was included. I was promised a 1-month paid leave after the project. It was an offer I couldn't refuse. It didn't take me long to think about it. I signed at the dotted line and the contract had been sealed. So the contract, as it turns out, it was for the big retreat in the mountain. Yeah, I know, the construction should have been finished by then, and it was, but it was only the surface structure that was finished. What me and a dozen other carefully selected workers had to do was to finish the basement. The huge basement. You probably get it by now. It was actually a bunker that we were finishing. An actual end-of-the-world bunker. The surface structure, it was all for show. I'm sure the owners would come by and have their picnic and whatnot, but it still doesn't change the fact that it was built to hide what's underneath. You know, make it inconspicuous. And regarding the underground complex, I can't give you much detail on it, but what I can tell you is that it ain't a normal basement. It's deep, really deep. It's reinforced with thick concrete, and the mountain itself is supposed to provide added layer of protection. Everything electrical is shielded, there are backups to everything and backups to backups. It's basically a fail-safe complex. The large sum of money all the workers were offered was hush money. I don't think they expect the place to be kept a perfect secret, but I suppose they want to limit exposure as much as they can. The bunker was also built a few states away from our company. I mean, our company has a presence in that state as well, but all the workers were brought from out of state, way out of state. I'm sure the reason behind that was to make sure none of us could drive up there in case of a real end of the world scenario. It's not like we have choppers on standby in case of an incoming asteroid. I think what they did was practical and smart. We finished the bunker in time and were given everything that we were promised. I enjoyed that 1-month leave that was promised, but I kept thinking about the bunker the whole time I was relishing the long vacation. I couldn't stop asking myself, why now? Is something coming? Are they expecting something bad to happen? I mean, you have to figure these people have connections in high places. When they spend tens of millions of dollars on a mega project like that, they must have a good reason behind it. It's not like it matters since I don't have a spot waiting for me in a complex like the one we built. But the mind does what it wants and I can't stop thinking about it. I know, I'm probably making something out of nothing. If I were a billionaire, I would do the same thing. I don't have to think that the world is coming to an end. I would just build one for what if. I've got money to burn, so why not? Looking back, it was an interesting experience to say the least, and so I thought I'd share with you. Let's just hope that the bunker will never get to be used. Today's date is October 21st, 2017 as of writing this email. I live in a small town in Alabama and we've been experiencing the loud booms that should be well known to everyone by now. We've been hearing this strange sound since last year and so it goes back to 2016. I can't recall the exact date of the initial boom, but I know that it's been well over a year and I can still remember how it happened. I was in my kitchen and the time was around 2 in the morning. I had a long nap in the afternoon and I just couldn't go to sleep. I was reading a book to pass the time, but then I figured I should have a glass of wine to help me fall asleep. I got up and as I was walking toward the kitchen counter, a loud boom sounded off and the floor shook a little. Yeah, it wasn't just a sound. There was an actual tremor of sorts. I was taken aback and didn't know what to do. I think I panicked a little because I actually thought that it was an earthquake. From what I know, we had a 7.3 magnitude earthquake in the late 1800s. However, the ones that followed the big one were barely detected by geological instruments. But don't take my word for it. I'm only 29 and the older folks might tell you a different story. So I go to school the next day and everyone were talking about the boom. Oh, by the way, I'm a high school teacher, and that's why I get to talk to so many people Monday through Friday. But yeah, my students were joking about the incident, they spoke about aliens, mega earthquakes and such. The teachers, on the other hand, were predictably more low-key with their opinions. In any event, the news on that day reported that we didn't have an earthquake in our area. I was listening to the radio while driving home after school, and they said that no one knew what the boom was or where it originated from. A few days later, everyone had moved on to a more exciting topic for conversation, and we just forgot about it. But not for long though, because the boom came back about a week thereafter. It was just as loud, and it still shook the ground a little. For God's sake, some days it was so loud that you can see the peanut butter jar sliding on the table. Granted, it wasn't a full-on slide. The fact is that the sound was powerful enough to slightly move a full jar of peanut butter. I actually began to worry that my house might take damage from it. Not from the intensity, but from the frequency of the boom. I say that because not long after, we began hearing the boom almost every day. I do wonder nowadays if I should have someone inspect the house for damages just in case. That's how things have been for the past year and some months. They made inquiries to university geology departments, and I hear some have even called the USGS the United States Geology Survey. Safe to say, we haven't gotten any answers. It's exactly like you see on the news. They talk about it, use it as a 2-minute filler story, but no one has answers for it. I personally have never been into conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying that in a disparaging manner. I'm into something that's arguably considered to be more out there, like the ghost and creature in the woods stories. But the booms that we've been hearing in our town for the past year or so, it's turning me more and more into a conspiracy nut. There have been talks about mega earthquakes, super volcano eruptions that could end the world, and some of the more hardcore people have been talking about an alien invasion. I still have reservation about the alien theory. I haven't gone that mad yet. Even so, I do wonder if the government is hiding something from us. Because otherwise, I think we would have gotten some answers to our tiny problem of the boom. Hey guys, Dennis here. I just wanted to chime in on one of the stories in this video. So the bunker, I actually know a person who purchased a spot in a professionally built bunker. Let me correct that, not a spot, but basically an accommodation for a family of 4. He told me that he had to shell out a cool $1 million to secure the spots, and I know he can because it's worth a lot more than that. This person, he didn't build a bunker in his own backyard, but instead he chose to pay for a pre-built bunker that houses several families in separate accommodations, but in a building designed to have a common area, sort of like having a small community inside a bunker. Which I think it's smart. Isolation drives people nuts. In the event of a catastrophe, you want to survive but also stay sane. As some of you might know, I used to work as a chef in a high-end restaurant. Not only did I get to meet a good number of very wealthy people there, but also became friends with some of them. And let me tell you, you'd be surprised at how meticulously those people have prepared for the what-if scenario. They all have 1 or 2 vacation homes in case of the smaller disasters such as localized earthquake, volcanic eruptions, or fracture in the social fabric in a single nation. They have their Bitcoin virtually, but also have gold and silver in physical form. LASIK surgery, by the way, is one of the basic prep they do as well. In case of an emergency, the last thing you want is to try to get prescription contacts or glasses. Lastly, the bunkers and learning to fly the small prop aircraft and helicopter seems to be a must for the super rich. It makes sense because having a bunker won't do you any good if you can't get to your bunker in time or at all. So if you speak to executives and other high-ranking officers in corporations, without a surprise, you'll learn that many of them know how to fly. After taking the new job, sorry, I speak as though everyone knows my life story. I no longer work as a chef and have taken a job to work as a regional manager for a restaurant chain. I have background in marketing, system administrator, and also having run my own company. Then add homeless to that list. Yeah, I was homeless at some point in my life. But yeah, all those past experiences sort of worked in my favor when I was offered the new job. I worked as a regional manager for a few months, then when our company merged with another company in the food industry, I was offered to work as a general manager, and that's when I got the opportunity to meet people whom I normally wouldn't get to speak to. Therefore, the last few months I had several opportunities to meet and mingle with people way above my pay grade. A whole slew of them told me that their hobbies were flying, and sure, flying would be awesome. I would take on that hobby if I had the money, but looking back at those conversations, it does make me pause and think for the real reason why they might be learning to fly. Admittedly, I'm way over analyzing the situation, but it's an interesting coincidence nonetheless. So chew on this for a minute. I live in a town called Princeton in New Jersey. Now this town on the outside looks like any other suburban neighborhood in the US. The only difference being, you've got lots of old money living here. They have their $20 million mansions hidden within the enormous plot of land and thousands of trees that act as camouflage. Surprisingly, some of them live among us, the mortals, and although they look no different than any of your neighbors, they own big chunks of huge corporations across the country. So you're talking about people with wealth that goes back generations. With many of those people in town, what do we have here? That's right, a private airport. Princeton Airport to be exact. Owned by a private corporation, and the corporation that owns it is primarily owned by one family. They say that on average, about 110 planes fly every day from the airport. It's kind of a pain in the butt for me because it makes so much noise when it passes by my house. Normally it's no bother, but when I'm recording narrations, oh, I really want to hurt those pilots. But again, my point stands. The rich love to fly, and they love to fly because it's their ticket out of hellhole when the poo-poo hits the fan. Notice I say poo-poo and can't say Nowadays, you gotta talk like an idiot to not get flagged by YouTube. Oh, talking about YouTube, look at all these gifts Mama YouTube has given me over the past month. Yippee! She gives me so many golden dollars that now I don't even know what to do with all of them. Oh, by the way, I've won the copyright dispute. I told you about companies making false claims to make money. Well, I was right. I bought the footage in question with good money from a reputable seller. There was no way the footage was owned by some asinine company. So at least I have one good news when it comes to Mama YouTube. Well, that's all I've got for today. Now I gotta hit the sack and start editing the video early in the morning. Hope you guys are having a great day. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.